Hello, everyone. Welcome to Online Seller UK podcast. My name is Prabhat, founder at Online Seller UK. And today I've got a really interesting topic that is how to set up an automated e-commerce business. I'm joined by Anne and welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Excellent. So let's start with the introduction, Anne, and we can take it from there.
Okay. Well, just real quickly about my background. My husband and I have had several businesses spanning over a 35-year period, shifted into the online space 18 years ago as a digital marketer, and had a training company that was teaching people how to build online sales funnels. Did that for about 8 years, and 10 years ago, excuse me, shifted into the e-commerce training space, simply because it's so much faster than traditional online marketing in terms of the traffic, and that's specifically being Amazon because they have the traffic. And that was the biggest challenge as I was mentoring people through my previous training company was the whole thing about traffic and conversions. It's like, well, hook yourself up to the biggest sales funnel in the world, Amazon, and they've got the traffic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for somebody who's starting up with the e-commerce itself, so where do you suggest them to start with? I know you've mentioned Amazon. Sorry to cut you, but is there anything around it?
Yeah, absolutely. Amazon is the first, simply because they train us really well. Their terms of service, they train us on how to be a good e-commerce seller. So there's that, but obviously then the customer base. But beyond that, I liken it to a swimming pool. You got the shallow end of the pool, you have the deep end of the pool. Shallow end of the pool is arbitrage, which I don't know how many of your listeners are aware of it, but it's buy low, sell high. We've been teaching it for 10 years. Yeah. It still works gangbusters. Then on the deep end of the pool is when you get out of Amazon and now you're starting to do perhaps Shopify, have your own web store, etc., which requires very high level traffic and conversion skill sets at that level. So I like to start people where they have the greatest likelihood of success, where there are the least amount of variables or risk for something to go wrong. And with each subsequent sourcing method, from wholesale to private label to liquidation, print on demand, etc., there's simply more variables. And so it's just really risk mitigation. But unless someone explains that global view, they could find themselves having jumped straight into the deep end, which to me would be Shopify. I know sales funnels really, really well. That's some really high level stuff there. Just you can read all the great success stories, but I know for a fact, traffic and conversions is a pretty hard earned skill set. So we start with the arbitrage, which is just sourcing from retail stores. To be clear, it is not wholesale. And it's also for the fact that the listing is already done. You're a supplier to a listing at the end of the day. That's what it is.
Yeah. So the obvious question people would think, okay, there are options like arbitrage, Shopify, and private labels. There are other. So where do you see, and it may be an unanswerable question, but where do you see a better success in terms of these online e-commerce models?
Where do I, well, in terms of the sourcing, because we have taught print on demand, we have taught wholesale, private label, liquidation, trade show sourcing, Shopify. We train on all of those. And we have found historically, and this is over 10 years of training and 9,000 students. So we have a fairly large database, so data points to reference, is that the arbitrage model is the easiest because you're only selling what's already selling. That's the key differentiator. Whereas if you're doing private label, you got to be really good. You got to have some serious funds, better have some good delayed gratification mechanisms in place because you're doing more for the long play. So what people typically want to see is they want to know that it's real. Can I generate cash flow? Hence, then arbitrage cash flow is very fast. And what that does is locks in their, oh, this works. That's the first thing people want to know in business. Then from there, they can scale up. But two, by starting with an easier method, allows them to start setting up for automation to be prepared for these bigger model sourcing methods that require a bigger team more often than not, more resources financially, etc. So call it, that's the safe zone, is arbitrage. And I don't think that'd be too hard to counter and say, oh, I don't think so. I think it's way over here. Like, so anyways, I want as much success as possible, because then you can move them up the pipeline into increasing levels of difficulty.
Okay, so arbitrage itself, it's not as easy as it sounds, and there is a challenge of sourcing the product and reliable source and all that sort of thing. So, do you want to talk about that as such? So, where do you actually find the reliable source of products?
That's a great question. So one is there's local retail arbitrage, and that's stores. So I have 2 Walmarts very close to me, and what you source from one Walmart, believe it or not, just 8 miles away, there's different products. I know this to be true. So there's local, and that's actually the least competitive, because you're finding stuff that isn't a unique store that someone else, and you know the data points, you know how many Amazon sellers are, you know the sales velocity, you know the profit, you know the Amazon fees, all the data is there in your, you know, through the seller app that Amazon provides free. For online, we have developed, you know, there's all sorts of software out there. One that we refer people to is AZ Insight, but we have our own software, which was created by our director of training, who did retail arbitrage his first 5 years. And this is for online, by the way. So I want to make a distinction. There's local, which is the fastest way to get going, bar none. And then there's online. And so with the online, we have a proprietary Google sheet, if you will, with all the critical data points. And then it lights up green, yellow, or red, indicating the sales velocity, the profit margin, your ROI, and your actual profit that you'd be getting. So that's real-time data. But as we know, Amazon is a very flexible, very dynamic marketplace. So, you know, while it's saying 2 Amazon sellers that day, as we know, things can shift. But it's speed to market when it comes to retail arbitrage. When you get those real-time data points, you jump on them, you buy those products, and you get those puppies off into the warehouse as fast as you can. You know, but then you can have a repricer. Repricer will help work with the volatility that, as we know, especially in Q4, that happens, so that you can protect the money that you've invested into that product. So with our particular spreadsheet, our Google sheet, it's got the data points, and then it formulates, and it lets you know visually green, yellow, or red as those data points line up. All right, this looks good. And then there is an API interface with AZ Insight, where there's a zap straight into, from that Chrome tool, AZ Insight, that zaps right into our spreadsheet that the owner of that app created specifically for our members. So yeah, you do have to know the data points. You have to have the right data points, and you have to know how to interpret the data points. You make your buying decision, and you move on it and get it into the Amazon warehouse.
Excellent. So, so all this process, there's lots of work involved, from sourcing to listing to making that decisions. And you've already mentioned a couple of tools to sort of help a seller to speed up the process.
Yes.
So I'm talking towards automation. So that was the whole topic of when we started. So when we think about automation, so do you want to talk about how to get that automation? Talk about tools and so on. So let's talk on that.
So, yeah, automation is really leveraging a number of, for example, the software. Software is always designed to save us time, make us more money, you know, as Amazon sellers. And one software, it's very, very specific. The software you use for wholesale is going to be different than the software that's been created for arbitrage versus private label, etc. That's what software is. Highly specific for a very specific task that the seller is wanting to have done. So it's software. It's also systems and processes. When someone has a blueprint, for example, I mean, I'm going to refer to then also the automation comes into building a team. Well, that is going to bring in the component of the hiring skill level that you have, the management skill level you have. And so it's never all things being equal, as one given seller comes in to do arbitrage or Amazon selling in general versus another. And we cannot change that, because people bring different skill sets into the equation. Some learn faster, some have management skills. So it's leveraging existing processes that someone has already created to create a replicatable Amazon arbitrage business. They've got it all dialed in, you know, driven the test through, not just with a body of, you know, trainers and coaches who have vetted and improved those systems and processes, But in our case, we have 9,000 students that have come through. And so we're always in a quest too, as software, improves and changes, a new one comes on the market, etc. We're always testing that. So again, it's leveraging. Number one is Amazon. It's a highly leveraged system. You may have two main jobs: find the right products, get them shipped in. The third would be managing your store. But to have someone's templated systems and processes. So for example, in the hiring process, we've got everything dialed in. We've taught thousands of people how to source. We don't do it for them. We teach them how to do it. And it's just, I liken it to a franchise. Why do people buy a franchise? The systems and processes are there. How long do you fry the French fries? So a French fry in London tastes exactly like a French fry in San Francisco. All right, that's a franchise. And so the beauty is in the systems that someone has gone before you and created that so that you can just grab their systems rather than you doing the arduous trial and error. So again, it's software, it's leveraging Amazon, it's leveraging proven blueprints and receiving SOPs, standard operating procedures, that you're like, I'm so glad you did the work. Yeah, I'll take that and use that. That's a stepping stone that you get to just step forward 20 steps rather than the whole trial and error. Now, to be clear, it never becomes 100% automated. You have to have what's called governance over a system. And the governance is checking on the performance, end of day reports, watching those KPIs of the people who work for you. The person who has the best oversight and governance over their systems, including their teams, that's who really, you want a well-oiled machine, and those are hard to come by. Like you said, it takes hard work, it takes skill set, it takes focus, but it is doable, and we have proof that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you've given us a lot of information on automation, and also people who are listening, and they've got some idea that there is a proven process in place. So if somebody is to get in touch with you, where is the best place to get you and talk to you a bit more about their goals?
Just go to ecommercebusinessschool.com. That's our homepage, ecommercebusinessschool.com. And up at the top, there's a blue tab that says free training. We have a very extensive blog, jam-packed with free training, jam-packed with case studies. There's a community page, etc. I will say that's a big aspect of who we are, is community. It's one thing to be learning something. It's another thing when you can link arms with a community of people.
Excellent. Thank you, Ann, for your time today, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.